Welcome back to Detroit's Morning Answer with John Anthony. This shutdown, I think Vice President J.D. Vance broke it down in the best possible terms ever.
There's two key Democrat lies I would like to get your take on and see if you can address. The first is that you're seeing a number of top Democrat leaders, from Kamala Harris and Chuck Schumer to Hakeem Jeffries, claim that it is a Republican shutdown caused by Trump. The second is that they're out there now claiming that they don't want to give health care to illegal aliens. Can you address both of those lies from the Democrat Party?
Yeah, so on the point that it's a Republican shutdown, look, it's obviously a Democratic shutdown. Just look at the vote totals in the House, look at the vote totals in the Senate, and look at the President of the United States' own action and conduct throughout this crisis. Nearly every single House Republican voted to open the government, Matt. Nearly every single Senate Republican voted to open the government last night. And even to their credit, a few moderate Democrats voted to open the government. That's not a Republican shutdown when nearly every single Senate Democrat votes to shut it down and every Republican voted to open it up. It's just obviously not true. Now, you can disagree about a number of things, but you can't disagree about the obvious fact that Republicans voted to open the government. The president stands ready to sign that opening of the government. We just need a few more Democrats to join us in that effort to open the government. Your final question about illegal alien benefits. Look, the text is very clear, and I even saw, I think it was George Stephanopoulos in an interview with Mike Johnson, did a fact check that was totally rooted in baseless claims. It was basically Democrat propaganda. If you look at the legislative text that they gave us, they tried to turn on two separate provisions that would give health care benefits to illegal aliens. Number one, if you're an American citizen, you've been to a hospital in the last few years, you probably noticed that wait times are especially large, and very often somebody who's there in the emergency room waiting is an illegal alien, very often a person who can't even speak English. Why do those people get health care benefits at hospitals paid for by American citizens? The answer is a decision made by the Biden administration that the Trump administration, working with congressional Republicans, undid. We turned off that money spigot to health care funding for illegal aliens. The Democrats, in their legislative text, want to turn it back on. That's one thing. The second thing, Matt, is we all know that there are various ways in which the Biden administration waved away illegal immigration status. They gave parolees, they gave asylum claims to people who weren't really claiming asylum. And when they waved the magic wand of amnesty, giving millions of people legal status, even though they were in the country illegally, they also gave those people access to health care benefits.
Vice President J.D. Vance brought it all the way back home. Today, we're joined by Alex Pfeiffer, former Deputy Assistant to the President and Principal Deputy Communications Director in the Trump White House. He recently transitioned to Watchtower Strategy as a Managing Director after serving on the communications front lines, and he is, from friends that I know, he is one of the premier communications people in Washington, D.C. Alex is widely recognized as one of the most effective Republican communicators of his generation, with experience spanning MAGA, Fox, the White House, and now private strategy. His vantage point stretches from internal comm war rooms to high-level corporate consulting. Alex, welcome to Detroit's Morning Answer.
Wow, man, that's quite the intro.
Yeah, well, I've heard so many great things about you. I mean that a lot of my friends who are in D.C., they when they heard that I was bringing you on, they said, "Get ready for a hell of an interview."
Awesome. Well, thanks. I'm glad to be on. How's it going?
Good. But Alex, set the stage. What is the strategic objective of this shutdown from the White House perspective? And what is the acceptable end state that would signal success rather than this drift?
Sure. So, look, I think to have a good understanding of the shutdown, we have to understand what's motivating the Democrats. And as JD, as the vice president said in that clip you just played, this is a shutdown they caused. Mm-hmm. And why did they cause it? Well, for weeks in advance to the vote, they telegraphed that they would not vote for the president's budget. They said that the president was an authoritarian, that he was a fascist, that we cannot fund what the president is doing with deporting illegal immigrants, putting the National Guard in D.C. They said they couldn't fund the budget. So, and that is to please a lot of their very left-wing voters.
Yeah.
So they're stuck between a rock and a hard place where if they end up voting for the budget, then they end up, looking like they've been lying to their voters about how evil Donald Trump is. So that's their motivation. From the White House's perspective, I think the key is to keep explaining how damaging the shutdown is. A good example of this is, troops and air traffic controllers and lots of other essential federal employees are right now showing up to work and working without a paycheck.
Yeah.
Ruben Gallego, who's a Democrat senator from Arizona who voted for the shutdown, he's still getting this paycheck. And he was asked by a reporter, why are you still getting your paycheck? Why not, decline to get it? And he said, well, I have mouths to feed. I can't, not accept a paycheck. I have, a mortgage to upkeep, et cetera. So he can take it, but the air traffic controllers who are right now working, they can't. And a lot of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So this is going to have real, actual damage to people's lives. And it's just because these Democrat senators want to please Rachel Maddow viewers.
I agree. Yeah, I remember when I was a state legislator, and our governor Bruce Rauner cut off our pay, and that you start feeling it. But that's my next question: where is the leverage in, let's say, week 1 versus week 3? In your opinion, what moves lose power as time passes, and which ones do you think will compound as this continues to go and extend to God knows when?
So I think there's a few points of leverage from the White House. One will be, and you've been seeing this already, the continued stories of, federal employees who say they're struggling because of the shutdown. The other bit will be, well, if we're not going to, have government funding, well, we're going to need to cut, trim up some parts of the government to allow essential services to continue. And that's going to mean Russ Vought, who's a budget hawk and who's, big champion of smaller government, identifying, antiquated parts of the government and, bureaucrats we don't necessarily need and firing them. So if Democrats want that blood on their hands, then they can keep supporting a shutdown. Yeah. So I think those are the trigger points we have. The other point is that I don't think the Democrat messaging battle will work because after a while people realize, what are we really doing here?
Yeah. And speaking of that, that messaging battle not working, here's Newt Gingrich. I don't know where they pulled him out of, but I thought he was spot on.
This may be the dumbest strategy that I have seen in a long time. There are two things the American people want. Do not close the government and do not raise spending. So what do the Democrats do? They say, I'm going to close the government until you raise spending. That's a double negative. Do you know how hard it is for a major party to design a strategy that has two different stupid things in the same strategy? But it is really one of the dumbest moments in party history, certainly in the last 30 or 40 years.
Now, Alex, here's my question. Do you agree with this diagnosis? But how would you exploit this in a message and in a floor strategy?
Well, yes, I agree with this message. And I think the one way to talk about it is how the vice president also did, which is essentially they're taking the country hostage for political objectives. And I think one important thing for your listeners to understand is that the spending bill Republicans are putting forward would fund the government through the end of November.
Yeah.
So that means, the Democrats expect us to, let them take the government hostage, give them their policy win, and then in November they're going to turn around and find some other policy thing they want and hold the government hostage. I mean, it's just not a sustainable thing, and it's also, frankly, messed up. The president and JD have made clear we're willing to negotiate on, various healthcare policies, but let's open up the government and then we can talk.
I had Elle Manerick on, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, and her point of view was that this is what they're really after is the one big beautiful bill and a lot of the sections in there that passed. Is that part of what they're trying to do? Because I personally believe I went through and I read the entirety of the one big beautiful bill. It's not perfect, but there's a lot of different things that protect the American taxpayer. Is that part of that Democrat strategy to chip away at the one big beautiful bill?
Yeah. So, the big beautiful bill, as I hope all your listeners are aware, included a lot of tax cuts, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, an expanded deduction for people who get Social Security, and it retained the 2017 Trump tax cuts.
Yeah.
So in order to pay for that, we had to cut spending. And so what the Democrat funding measure does is it repeals parts of that bill, which would, in effect, increase healthcare subsidies for illegal immigrants by $200 billion a year. So that's nuts. And yes, they are using this.
Every time I hear them speak. And then, this is what I want to know, Alex. because you were in comms. I mean, sometimes when you guys saw some of the stories being reported by the media as it related to Trump's administration, I mean, what were some of the things you guys would say? I mean, was one of the big things? Can you believe this? Or make it make sense? What were some of the biggest, most egregious things that you guys heard come out from the legacy media that you guys were like, no, we have to get on top of this right away? And what were some of those stories that you missed? And they grew and grew and grew until it was hard to stop stop it from permeating the land.
Well, I think a good example of the problem with the press is it was about a month and a half ago where just like random Twitter accounts were claiming that the president was dead.
Yeah.
And this was like I forget what weekend this was. This was early August, I believe. And, just all these liberal accounts started pumping up these tweets claiming the president's dead. He's at Walter Reed. And then the New York Times and the CNN started covering it. They were like, well, we have to cover that, there are health concerns about the president. And the reporters' justification when they cover ridiculous stories like this is, well, there's a lot of social media chatter. Like, What does that even mean? I mean, if a bunch of people on Twitter started saying that the moon landing was fake or the Earth is flat, well, the New York Times or CNN have to write, many people are saying that the Earth is flat. It's insane. And that was their justification for covering this, bogus. It's not even a rumor. It's just a smear.
Yeah.
A lot of that is, one, reporters hate the president, but the other is, frankly, that they're lazy and stupid. And so they actually think that's good reasoning. Oh, there's lots of social media chatter, so we might as well cover it.
This is why I love to talk to people who are inside the room and can give the American people a clear vision of what actually happens in the White House. Because when I saw that story, I'm like, the guy hasn't taken off. The guy has done more press conferences, more interviews with the media than Joe Biden did in 4 whole years. When you think about just the previous administration and you look at how President Trump, I mean, he's done in the first, 7-8 months, more than any in my lifetime that I've seen any president. Where does he get the energy? Where does he get the stamina to go this full? Because I sometimes I'm up in the middle of the night and I'm seeing him tweeting. Where does he get this energy?
If you've been shot in the face and put on trial for bogus, non-crimes, then you're not going to waste any time when you get back to office. There's no better motivation than what they did to him between the first and the second presidency. And also, the nature of we have, only 4 years to get stuff done, so there's no time to waste.
Yeah. Watchtower calls you one of the most effective Republican communicators. How do you validate that claim? What were some of your measurable wins from your White House tenure to back it up?
Well, I think the more fun stuff in the White House is helping on the comms when they ran, the 12-day war there, and also working to build up our rapid response team. So if anyone listening follows our Rapid Response 47 account, that was something I helped put together, and I think we do a good job there. And then on the campaign is really where I had my most fun, and I helped find the research behind the Kamala's for they, them, Donald Trump is for you ad, where we found the tape and the proof that she supported transgender surgery for illegal immigrants.
I was part of that. I'm not with her. And rapid response, I use that daily. I mean, I get so many of it because you guys cut it perfectly, and I use a lot of that. But as we're approaching the midterms, if you were still there, how would you counsel Republicans to think about this shutdown as part of a multi-election strategy rather than just this short-term fight?
I think going into the midterms, the focus has to always be, I think, on the tax cuts that we deliver. And I think we have to keep reminding people that Democrats voted for a tax hike. So it increased the tax hike.
Yeah.
Right? So they voted for a tax hike. And I think that just needs to be drilled into people's heads nonstop. No one wants a tax hike.
Yeah. Alex, I know you're a busy man, so I got one final question for you. What's the one metric that those of us here in Main Street, and what should we I guess let me put it this way: the metric that will tell you the shutdown is winning the argument rather than only surviving the news cycles.
So I think you'll know which side is winning the shutdown by which side is more intra-party fighting. And I think you're seeing that. You're starting to see that bubble up on the Democrat side with AOC and Bernie trying to take advantage of the messaging. So I think you'll see which side is winning or losing depending on how much they're fighting within their party over the shutdown.
So you mean like this right here, Representative Golden?
Senator, I'd be interested to know what you say to your colleague in the House, Jared Golden, a Democrat from Maine. He says that this government shutdown is the result of hardball politics driven by demands of far-left groups that they're making on Democratic Party leaders to make a show of their opposition to President Trump. The shutdown is hurting Americans and our economy. The irony is that it has handed more power to the president. Now, he says this fight is ostensibly about health care, and he notes that he opposes the Medicaid cuts, wants to extend the tax credits. But then he says some of my colleagues in the majority party have reasonable concerns going to high-income households. Normal policy disagreements, though, are no reason to subject our constituents to the continued harm of this shutdown. Do you think he's wrong?
That's a whole lot of gibberish. The most important thing, again, is that what I know for a fact, 24 million Americans are going to have.
Alex Pfeiffer, is that part of the what you think the metric will be once we? I mean, because it's already started. They're eating each other up.
That's exactly it. And Congressman Golden from Maine is 100% right there. And speaking of which, your senator, Gary Peters, he's not running for re-election next year. What is his excuse for not voting to keep the government open?
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? I would love for the White House, the rapid response, to start showing the data, to start showing examples of illegal immigrants actually receiving care. And so that we can, as people like myself in radio, we can start playing that. It helps bolster the argument that this is what is happening. What do you say about that, Alex?
I'm going to bug him right after this call and get out those clips.
All right. And you can, while you're on there, you can tell President Trump to come to Michigan and get on this show as well, Alex Pfeiffer.
Sounds like a good idea.
Alex Pfeiffer, former Principal Deputy Communication Director for Trump 47. Thank you so much for joining us on Detroit's Morning Answer. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'll come on whenever you want.
Oh, I love that. And trust me, I will lean on you, sir. Thanks so much.
Oh, I'm going to regret saying that.
I appreciate it. Alex Pfeiffer. I'm telling you, when you have people who are there and who are battle tested, like Alex Pfeiffer, and now he's with Watchtower Strategy, they know what's really going on, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so happy to have had him on. Detroit's Morning Answer. Happy Friday, Paul. Cue it up. All right, Paul. You know what I'm talking about. We'll be right back. Well, that brings us to the end of this show today. As you head into the weekend, remember this. Real change doesn't come from Washington first. It comes from us. From our homes, our neighborhoods, our communities, and our faith. Stay bold, stay anchored, and never lose sight of the truth. We'll see you tomorrow, 5 p.m., Black and White Radio. We out!